Okay, we're back. Thank you, folks. I did work with Becky Wassman, our legal drafts person, to put in words our recommendation to Joint Management Committee and Joint Rules Committee, which would then be our motion. And I know Janet Ansel was willing to make the motion. Becky worked with us on the language and emailed it to Mike. Janet and I took a look at it. We've got our copies printed, so I'm going to turn it over to Janet to make the motion.
That'd be great. Is it okay if Mike distributes it to everybody
Do you have copies for everyone?
electronically? Well, he
Or
can
electronically?
email it.
I can email it to the.
Yeah.
I knew I was opening this for a reason.
Same time. My motion is that the Legislative Advisory Committee on the State House recommends to the Joint Legislative Management Committee and the Committee on Joint Rules that the fiscal 22 Budget Adjustment Act include 1.5 million in general funds to issue an RFP for programming and schematic design development for expansion of the State House. This shall include the infrastructure needs for any future phases of expansion.
And the infrastructure needs is like some of those mechanics.
Right.
In the walls, your conduits, your sprinkler system, that type of thing.
So Mike, you just emailed that to us.
I did.
Thank you.
So the language on that is picked up from our motion of last time we were here. For the programming and schematic design development. And the 1.5, that was our language of last time. Allison.
Sorry, just a technical thing. Mike, nothing seems to have come through.
I've got mine.
I got it.
I got the email, but there's nothing in the email.
No,
There's an attachment.
An attachment to it.
54 kilobytes.
I can,
Can you send it to me again? Because I don't have the attachment.
I will.
Thanks.
It's tiny. Who picked this font?
Who what?
Who picked this font?
See, I don't.
Well, I don't have it. Can you put your two fingers on there and
No, I
it
just.
doesn't work?
It's not. Oh, yeah, it is. It is working. It didn't before.
I'm pasting it right into the body of the email.
Oh, great, thanks. 'Cause I can't, I don't see an attachment. Mine, where we have a blogger design.
Over closer to question.
You see, completely blank. I'm not crazy.
Hang on a second.
I mean, I may be
Get a
crazy,
little
but.
more focused here. Okay, John.
Oh, see,
I'm,
nothing.
I'm just wondering how then this ties to the specifics we mentioned. Is this tied to our previous recommendation? So the specifics are going up in the committees and the, yeah, okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike, for sending it again in a bigger font.
So Janet Ansel has moved. Is there this language?
I'll second it.
Question, when we say that this language incorporates our last motion, how will these two committees know what that language is?
It's picking up the program
I
and
know what we did,
schematic
and I know what
design.
we voted on, but when they see this recommendation, how will they know what we did and what we voted
Some people on this, I'm sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
this committee are on joint rules and some people are on JLMC. So it seemed to me that there's enough cross
Fertilization.
fertilization. I was going to use the word intelligence, but
Embedded moles.
yeah.
I got nothing.
We've got two here on joint management. You're on joint rules. And the
And
rest,
I've advocated, it's been great because Alice knows, because we've been in committee when you presented initially. It was great to have at least one of us embedded in those committees. So it's been great to have advocates on those committees.
Thank you.
okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? John,
Just to make it clear, is there a way, we created a document for our last recommendation
don't think we did.
No, the one.
The report recommendation.
Right, the
So we
report.
just kind of consolidate the two into a report and send it, you know,
Maybe a memo?
Well, Janet,
My thought is to vote on the motion, and then if we want to have a discussion and another motion on a report, we should do that. We could do it separately. This can stand
on its
It
own,
can.
on its own.
can stand, yeah, it can stand on its own. Because really, a lot of our work in the report would reflect that we support this 1.5 million.
Mhm.
So really, the motion is almost your report.
Yeah. Okay.
Any further discussion? What I would do then is have a show of hands unless,
Oh,
is that fine?
okay.
Or do you think we ought to call the roll? Show of hands?
You better call the roll because people can't see us.
Okay.
Picture that I'm looking at on the screen.
I guess I call the roll, huh? I'll start with Anthony. Senator Polina,
Yes.
Steve Perkins.
Yes.
And Representative Ansel. Representative Shaw.
Yes.
Janet Miller. Yes. Senator Bennett.
Yes.
Representative Bartholomew.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
John Dunville.
Yes.
Eric Philpo, you can't vote. You
What
can't.
is this?
He's not, he's,
It's like you'll take a blessing instead of communion? Exactly. I'll give you a blessing. It's the administration.
Representative Emmons, yes. 10-02. So that really completes our work at this point.
Good work before lunch.
Discussion.
So now,
Well done.
now let's create a document with the previous motion we approved last meeting, incorporating this motion in the vote that we can then send to JLMC.
Why do we need to include what we did last time? Because this incorporates.
This incorporates it. I wouldn't worry too much.
I want to be
It would-
sure they understand.
It would consolidate
No, you're gonna be-
decisions we've made since the last report we sent out in one document. That would be the only argument to do it. So we've really only made two decisions, right? Two motions since the
Yeah,
report.
but the other motion was the same as this, is to recommend the 1.5 for 22 BAA for programming and schematic design development for the expansion of the State House. That was our motion last time.
Well, the other motion talked about raising the second floor by the cafeteria and at committee rooms and dividing and HVAC. There was more to it than that, I thought. It was more specific about
So
what we
would the
wanted to see.
report explain what we mean by expansion of the State House for this 1.5? Is it explaining what that expansion is? Is that what people are thinking for the report?
That's what I'm thinking.
For the report that we explain?
There was pretty general consensus when Representative Ansel spelled out what we're talking about here in phase one.
Right. So we would submit our report, which would include, the report is that we define the expansion of the State House, this 1.5 million for expansion of the State House. And we would explain our definition of the expansion of the State House, which is,
I thought we did that with the motion we passed last time.
we don't want to put in two motions. This motion really incorporates the motion we did last time. I asked the question, are we looking at having the report explain what we mean in our motion, which says expansion of the State House, what that 1.5 is for? Anna,
Does someone have the motion that we voted last time? And I'm looking for it and don't see it anywhere.
What I have here in my notes is that it was moved that House and Senate approves would secure 1.5 million in their budget adjustment for programming and architects to go through the schematic and program development and design development.
So it is virtually the
It's
same.
virtually the
Okay.
same.
Thank you.
I'm be forgetting, Joe had a motion that
That
listed
was
all
it.
this stuff. It was more specific about the dividing committee. We had this discussion about dividing moving the walls in 30s and 40s and building above the cafeteria and adding committee rooms. It was.
Isn't that on our
It was
website?
all in there in an motion. What, didn't you do that motion?
I think the motion was watered down to some extent because my notes say that we moved to recommend to the joint rules and JLMC, recommend to House and Senate approach that the BAA include 1.5 million for programming, schematic design, and design development for State House architectural needs. And that conversation was focusing on the raising of the cafeteria and fixing the HVAC system and fixing the existing House committee rooms to match that.
So what Butch is saying, if we do a report, we explain what we're asking the 1.5 million for the expansion of this development for the expansion of the State House. We explain what we mean for the expansion of the
I
State
don't want
House.
somebody to run out that's not on this committee and hasn't been following what we've been doing. And I understand that we have legislative express that would be going to management committee and joint rules, but to back up their, how do we transmit our thoughts to them? And I don't want somebody to run out and grab the Freeman, French and Freeman report and say, hey, look what we're building.
Right.
Here's the 1.5 million to kickstart that. And I think there's been some confusion on that from people outside of this room saying, well, they're going to do it this way, they're going that way, they're going up, they're doing all this sort of thing. I think this 1.5 million is really targeted to the phase one conversation that we had. Doesn't need to be a motion, it just can be just a paragraph in a letter
Mhm. And then
saying
the motion below.
this is the phase that supports, this is what supports the motion below supports this concept.
So I'm gonna look to Becky. I hope she's listening in. I mean, what we're really looking at is an introductory paragraph to explain our motion. And we're really looking to explain that the 1.5 million is for this particular part of the expansion, which is to put a floor above the cafeteria, move the cafeteria functions, the serving area, the kitchen, and the seating area to the top floor. Convert the current cafeteria space into committee rooms. And to do some demolition in some of the current committee rooms to expand the adjacent committees. And in the work that there would also be incorporating infrastructure capacity for future expansions. That's what we would like in the introductory paragraph.
Should that also include fixing the HVAC system to accommodate current committee space?
Isn't that already moving ahead?
Yeah, that's kind of moving ahead.
I think that's separate.
Tying it into the 1.5.
I'm not talking about future committee space, I'm talking about current committee space.
Right.
But we did that in
I
a
thought
million.
you appropriated that and moved ahead on it.
If you're comfortable that that's
Yeah.
already been done.
That was also in our report, wasn't it?
Yes, in our initial report
So I
was to expedite that
Never
HVAC.
mind.
That'd be repetitive, I think.
So Becky, did
Maybe
you
a good thing.
get the gist of what I just said?
I did. Can you just let me know where this introductory paragraph is going?
Janet?
Well, Butch suggested a letter. I think that's probably sufficient because there's a lot of background material. You're just trying to put some boundaries around it.
Some context,
So,
yeah. So it would be a letter to the Joint Management Committee and Joint Rules Committee from this committee.
And this could be the introductory
Okay.
paragraph.
Okay?
Recommendation letter.
Recommendation.
Okay.
So do we want to see the language that Becky drafts? Or would you have good faith in not seeing the language? We're our members here.
I have pretty good faith in you and Senator Benning to pound that out.
Other folks?
You just articulated what we've been talking about in its entirety. If that's what it says, then it should be fine to have it come from you.
Well, it will come from
Right.
our committee, but what I'm asking, do members want to see this language before we adjourn today? Because we're not going to meet again until whenever, which could be January.
But it's easy enough to circulate once Becky's done it. And we can just all sign off on it with you. And just email back and say, great.
Circulate it after. What's your time frame, Becky? You can do this and have it done within a day?
Sure, I was just gonna work on it now. But,
People wanna-
when would the committee like to see it?
So
If not,
yeah, Becky,
why don't you work on it right now, Becky, and just send it to Mike?
and
Okay,
then, because then we could adjourn maybe by 12:30 and be done.
Yeah, we're going to adjourn and be done. That's my goal.
okay, so my understanding, I have the language, Alice, Representative Emmons, that you just stated about what would be worked on. Do you want me to include the motion in there too, just to say that this is context for the motion that's being, that the committee passed?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll work on that now.
This is our vision and it resulted in this motion.
Would you like, in the meantime, to go over this?
I don't dare. I know it's probably good work, but I don't dare. Just hold tight, folks.
So this would be, I recommend putting this in the RFP so that they have an understanding of the numbers that we've come to.
Okay, that'll work.
I would envision you're being called in front
Yeah.
of rules and JLMC for the possibility of getting some more detailed questions, and that might be a conversation there. Of course, I can't speak for either of those committees, but I'm assuming that.
Well, you're on management, right?
I am, but I'm not the head of it, just a peon.
You're in the club. Well, while we do have a moment, I want to thank everyone for all the work that you've done throughout the summer and fall. It's been a heavy lift, and there's been a lot of commitment from all of you on this. I know at times it's frustrating, and we were spinning and going around in circles, but we did accomplish quite a bit. And I want to thank you all, because I think we did some good work, some real thoughtful work. And I think people are taking the recommendations that we've put out to come back in January. They are taking those recommendations seriously and working on them, from what I'm picking up. And hopefully we'll all be back in the building come January.
Thank you for pushing us along, sometimes dragging us, kicking and screaming, but getting us through the process.
Pushing a rope, pushing a rope.
Pushing a rope, that's what it was, pushing a rope. And it was a chicken and egg situation.
Sometimes tickling helps.
Sometimes what?
Tickling.
Just tickling?
So do we just have a notion now, what we want to do? Do we want to take a brief break and then come back at 12 and hopefully see a letter from Becky? Or,
I would just wait. I think
If I can get out of here by noon, I would much
Yeah.
prefer doing
Becky is pretty good.
somewhat disconcerting to hear that some of the parts that are necessary for these projects are on a slow boat from China
Oh, God.
that will probably end up in the queue in San Francisco Harbor.
We'll go to China.
out Long Beach.
Or wrapped around an oil pipeline off Catalina.
There you go. Watch where you're dropping your anchor.
Oh, my God, that was really crazy.
Can you imagine being one of these companies that can't sell the
No,
product?
we are on air, folks. Remember, we're on air.
I wasn't saying anything I thought was outrageous.
Oh, go on, say something outrageous, John, and shock us.
I think I'll refrain. Because it'd be about you.
Yeah. You can't shock me. Well, I suppose you can. Very shockable.
Uh-oh.
This can't be good.
Oh, good, I'm just emailing you.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness. I'm just
I
responding
wanted
to
to
you.
say thank you. And Dan is on. That's good.
We should alert you, you're still on YouTube. so-
We're on YouTube. We're waiting for language to come back from Becky. Becky's working on our final language for recommendations, and then we're going to adjourn for good.
Next up on V-SPAN 2, it's book club.
Huh?
Next up on V-SPAN 2, it's
V-Span is right.
I'm ready to go into book club right now.
So did you all hear the joke on VPR this morning?
No,
About the man who couldn't ride a unicycle?
He couldn't do
what?
what?
Could not ride a unicycle. He was too tired.
he was too tired.
That's
God.
funny.
Mitch Wortley is still out, is what you're saying?
No, Mitch was there this morning,
Oh,
but they did a great piece on SM, on rental housing.
We're hoping to adjourn by 12 o'clock. It works starting at 9:30.
Does that mean the meeting on the 19th comes off?
We do not have a meeting on the 19th. That comes off your calendar. You get a free
Hitting
day.
the delete key. Here we go.
Huh?
I'm hitting the delete key.
Hit the delete key.
Oh, my God, you're kidding. The 19th, just save it. Don't do anything else.
It's gone.
Yeah, but if you keep it in there, you'll know it's your free day.
right, camouflage.
Sometimes you just shut up, and move forward. This is the quietest this room's been in a long time.
Right.
Anybody else get snow at home?
Did you get snow? I saw cars with snow headed south on the interstate.
No, frost. We got frost. It was 25 when I woke up this morning.
Yeah.
We got a lot of frost. How much snow did you
Oh,
get?
a
A little
little
bit.
Where are you? Where do you live?
Richmond.
So what's your height? What do you?
It's about 5'8".
Taller than you.
We're at 600 feet.
And I keep getting myself in
We
trouble.
had snow all day yesterday.
Didn't
More than
stick.
Trace.
Yeah.
He was still there this morning, but
We had about that much frost this morning.
Yeah, we had a lot of frost. It was like.
Right.
It's like glued on.
Yeah. My favorite is,
Your committee.
using fog. It
I've heard about it. Yes.
makes all the trees furry.
Yes. We drove through a section of that.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's not enough.
It's still too wet to mow.
You heard me say that.
Yeah, I gotta get out there with my lawnmower to get the gas out of it. Next week. So the vote that we did take was 10-0 three absent, not two. It's Karen Middleman, Commissioner Fitch, and Senator Harding. The three. I forgot Karen. And Becky's incorporating that vote in the language.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric, is Sabrina still in your office?
Yes, she
I
is.
haven't talked to her. Okay.
Don't ask me where we're sitting because we're
That's okay.
shuffling every
I
day.
just want to send her an email. So.
Yeah, she's around.
First ballot is going to be
Everybody have, you know.
No kidding.
Thank you for responding. Yes. I'll be here.
still.
And
Right, I have to be in the joint. We should know where you are. There's an issue. Yes, text me. But hopefully this is.
They were still.
And I know that, I mean, I know there's.
Oh, I know they did.
That was
Not what I thought it is.
I'm on a completely different planet.
Let's go with that as a good
Scheduling something.
I mean, it seems like the simplest. And we have.
And then someone from staff
Yeah,
has access to my calendar.
Yeah.
We'll schedule something.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it happens momentarily. Yeah, I'm free on Friday.
Okay.
I'm not free on
I
Friday.
also realized that when you're scheduling with other people and you say, yes, I can do that.
I'll let you know. How
And then if it doesn't get confirmed,
Yeah.
I lost one or two of those days, and when it gets confirmed, I don't necessarily go back and figure out the rest of it. It's
I don't know, I maybe just tired. Yes.
better during the session, because I don't really have it.
Sure she is, but also.
15 minutes.
Well, yes, she's on the site now.
Because they're easy to schedule. You don't have to schedule
You want me.
rooms or anything else. If all of a sudden, having him
it's gonna be,
where you're
that goes.
so it's probably
Doesn't have to be because I have a trial, so that's all. The bottom line is that could help. Conversation. Straight forward.
I think we.
Nine.
Terrible portrait.
Way different.
That's what it is.
cool.
They're not overtaking the dominant.
That's changed a lot of my schedule.
Right now, people are not getting.
The one that's like, it's me, my number is like,
And then
the one that used to be in room 11. Oh, did you move it in there? I'll go see. Go look. I like the.
But Allison, you gotta keep this one, it's got a UFO.
I know, this is Springfield. Are you kidding?
I work from home office.
This is
And then
I love this.
from the office.
But this is our.
Thursday. It's helped.
He's got a UFO behind him.
here.
What is that?
Oh, it's cracked.
Here.
Yeah, what is that across the field behind him? He doesn't seem very concerned about it.
It's, it's,
I think you should have a contest, to ask people what that is.
Pulling back the curtain.
Yeah, we extreme
Probably should get
yeah, what is that?
conversation going forward. before I get
David,
you.
what is that?
So that is,
It
it is a telescope.
Oh, it's a telescope. We have it.
The Harkness House.
There's a whole museum of telescopes.
Of course.
It's a telescope
Right.
Do that
to
all the
look at UFOs. Okay, what am I doing?
Participated in inventing
Yes.
that particular.
You can telescope.
And he has,
No, take us off.
Okay.
and there's a whole museum of it.
Gathering that
Are we going
routinely
off of YouTube, folks?
Just-
Okay.